everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Music Weekly, the show where I give you guys the latest in the prog news world, introduce you guys to some new prog singles, and give you updates on what's happening here on the channel on Nathan on Shuffle. It's our first episode of 2026. Hopefully you guys had a good New Year's celebration and a holiday season and whatever else was going on for you over the past few weeks. I haven't done an episode in a little bit of time here. My last episode was my big tournament of the end of the year, all my favorite albums of 2025 pitted together against each other and picking a favorite out of that list for what my favorite album of the year was. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't checked it out, I would strongly recommend it. It's kind of required watching for the channel, in my opinion. So hopefully you guys are having fun out there, and I thought it'd be cool to get into the swing of things for the new year with some news updates. And the show's going to be maybe slightly different because we're at the start of the year. There isn't a ton happening quite yet, not a ton of new releases coming out at the moment. So I'm going to give a quick list of some news items that I've noticed over the last week, talk about some upcoming releases for 2026 that I'm excited about, and give you updates on the channel and kind of my mindset and what I'm thinking for the channel for this year. So that's basically my schedule for the episode here, and let's get into it. So first, the quick news updates that I've noticed in the world of prog. One of my favorite prog metal bands, HAKEN, had a big announcement this past week. They announced the departure of Charlie Griffiths and Connor Green, two very important key members of the group. So there was rumblings about this already, so this is just basically making it official. And it's very unfortunate because I love HAKEN. I love their current lineup of the band that created the album Fauna from the last couple of years. I love that album, and they've been doing a lot of live tour dates. I saw them live on Cruise to the Edge a couple times, so it's really disheartening to see two key members leave the group at this point in time. But the silver lining, I suppose, is that it sounds like they're already expecting to put out new music. They say that there will be new music this year, but they haven't given any updates on if they're going to add new members to the lineup or just continue forward with the people that are left over. They're already on the bill for this year's Cruise to the Edge, so it'll be interesting to see if they add in some new touring musicians to help round out the lineup, but maybe in the studio they'll just stick with the core members that already exist in the band. So it's really difficult to know and speculate what's going to happen with the band, but I'm glad they're not like totally disbanding, that the band is still continuing in some form, since they're one of my favorites. But of course it's disappointing to hear that this is the future for them, that their two members are leaving the group who have been such integral part of the band. So we'll see what's ahead for HAKEN in this upcoming year. Peter Gabriel reveals his new album, OI, and the first single has been released called Been Undone. Much like his album I.O., he's releasing basically monthly singles, around the, I believe it's the full moon of each month. That new releases will be coming out, and of course the different mixes for the different tracks as well, and the full album will basically roll out throughout the year and be complete by the end of the year. So that should be interesting. Peter Gabriel's is always a very notable artist in the prog realm, of course, from his association with Genesis. I.O. was a bit more in a poppier, more, straightforward rock direction, not very much prog on board, but some very good songwriting, and was a really nice album that I enjoyed quite a bit. So we'll see what this project unfolds. Gabriel explained that we'll be getting another year of full moon releases under the name OI. The songs are a mix of thoughts and feelings. I have been thinking about the future and how we might respond to it. We are sliding into a period of transition like no other, mostly likely triggered in three waves: AI, quantum computing, and the brain-computer interface. Artists have a role to look into the mists, and when they catch sight of something, to hold up a mirror. And these are my lumpy bits. I.O., the inside has a new way out, and OI, the outside has a new way in. So very much related to I.O. and kind of the other side of the coin, perhaps. And it'll be interesting to hear these singles as they come out and see what he has in store for us throughout this year. So something to look forward to, monthly singles. Not everyone is thrilled with this type of a release strategy. A lot of people, especially in this realm, enjoy hearing full albums at once rather than like just singles monthly. But I think regardless, it's great to know that he's continuing to make great new music. So excited to see what's in store for Peter Gabriel this year. Arena singer Damian Wilson is leaving the band at the end of 2026, and Paul Manzi is set to return. This is kind of an interesting announcement because Damian Wilson isn't leaving the band right away, or right at the beginning of the year, and this is an announcement for something that's to happen at the end of the year. But it seems like they're keeping Damian Wilson on board for some live dates later in the year, but then he'll be leaving after those dates commence at the end of the year. So then we'll get Paul Manzi back into the group, who's Wilson's predecessor. And so it's not like the group's disbanding or anything bad's happening there. And a lot of people like Paul Manzi as well. They've had a lot of great singers through the course of Arena's run. So interesting news that we're getting more lineup switch-ups and things like that with some of these groups. But Damian Wilson has a lot on his plate, so kind of makes sense that he has other interests going on that he's going to have to leave for. So it should be interesting to see what Arena does in the future and to see if that means new music on the way with Paul Manzi on the vocals. But at least we'll see a little bit more with Damian Wilson in the group with some of these live shows coming towards the end of the year. Another thing I saw, Gong kick off the new year with a video for their new single, The Wonderment. This is a cool, psychedelic piece here, and it was really interesting to listen to. Really cool. Their new album, Bright Spirit, is coming out through Kscope on March 13th. The fourth Gong album held by the current lineup. Following Rejoice I'm Dead from 2016, The Universe Also Collapses from 2019, and Unending Ascending from 2023. So that should be something cool to look forward to from a classic band in a new iteration. And then I saw, interestingly enough, for the final piece of news, Rick Wakeman, Steve Hackett, Asia, Caravan, Focus, and more are lined up for a new Prog cruise. Of course, we've got Cruise to the Edge that I've been on the last couple years. Unfortunately, won't be able to attend this year, but it seems like this is a new Prog-focused cruise that's coming about. It's a Prog river cruise along the Rhine that's happening in July. The new venture is from Trading Boundaries, the popular East Sussex venue and shop, which plays host to many Prog gigs throughout the year. So 2 cruises will run on consecutive weeks from July 11th to 18th, from Basel to Amsterdam in Switzerland, and then from July 18th, 25, returning from Amsterdam to Basel on the Emerald Astra, a state-of-the-art river ship. So performances will be acoustic on board with the lineup for the cruises. For the first voyage being Rick Wakeman, Acoustic Asia, which is featuring Jeff Downes, John Mitchell, and Harry Whitley, being a trio with no drums. We're going to have Thies van Leer and Minno Gutjes from Focus. Acoustic Caravan, Adam Wakeman and Damian Wilson and Roger Dean. On the second voyage, we've got Steve Hackett and band, Acoustic Asia. Once again, you've got the guys from Focus again, Peter Jones, Adam Wakeman and Damian Wilson once again, and Frank Grabowski. The Lamb Lies Down on piano and paper, Roger Dean. So that should be interesting to see a lot of different classic prog artists in different settings, and to get another flavor of Prog cruise. I thought that was worth mentioning on today's list here. So let's transition into a little bit of the upcoming releases for the year that I'm excited about, that I'll most likely be talking about in future episodes. Some of the big headlines that I'm immediately interested in coming into this new year. On January 16th, we're going to have Sowen's album Reliance. A lot of people have not really cared as much for the current direction of the band. From what I've heard, they kind of are starting to sound a little bit samey and have this kind of similar Tool-like kind of sound to them. But there's some fantastic members in the group. It's always fantastically produced, and I'm interested to hear what they've cooked up for this new record. Alan Morse comes up with a solo album called So Many Words coming out on January 22nd. Of course, the guitarist of Spock's Beard and just a brother of Neil Morse, who I'm obviously a huge fan of. Plantoid comes out with an album, Flare, on January 30th. Their debut record was one of my favorites from the last couple of years. More of a jazzy, kind of indie rock tone to them, so I'm interested to see what they come up with next. Hallis with Panorama on January 30th as well, kind of a classic prog sort of flavor to them, classic rock. Carnival has an album, In Verses, coming out February 6th. So I'm really excited for that. Australian prog metal, one of the premier acts. They have a couple of really fantastic records under their belt. It's been quite a while since their previous record. I believe like 10 years plus from my, just off the top of my head. A lot of people really love Sound Awake from the band. That was their second record. Fantastic progressive metal. We'll see what they cook up with. The singles have been really promising, and I'm sure it'll be one I talk about on the channel. Big Big Train's Woodcut also comes out on February 6th. I'm really excited about it. I've already been listening to my promo copy, and I can tell you it's going to be something to really get excited for. A cool, classic progressive rock concept record from this latest iteration of Big Big Train, which to me are one of the premier like traditional prog bands that still exist. Very international. There's members from every corner of the world, and they're all like all-star musicians from various prog bands. So it's really exciting to see what they cook up here. I'm also really excited about the Neil Morse Band, of course, and their upcoming album Lift, or L-I-F-T. It was kind of came out of the blue that Neil Morse Band was coming out with something new. They convened earlier last year without letting anyone know that this happened, and it's the classic core lineup of Neil Morse Band with Mike Portnoy included. He found some time in his schedule. He's been so busy with Dream Theater, so it's really nice to see that he has some time to spend with Neil Morse Band, and I'm sure it's going to be a great album that I'm going to be talking about extensively. That's on February 27th. So those are some of the big releases that I'm excited about. There's also Wolverine's Anomalies coming out February 6th as well. Clive Nolan's The Mortal Light, kind of a big sprawling concept record, coming out February 15th. Major Parkinson, kind of a quirky newer prog band. Velisa Chapter 2, Viva the Apocalypse, comes out on March 13th, as well as that Gong record I talked about, Bright Spirit. So a couple of interesting things already on the calendar for this upcoming year. Hopefully there's something there to be excited about, and I'm sure a lot more will be announced. I'm going to talk a little bit now about bands. They don't have official release dates, but I hope that they'll be releasing something this year. That's at least what, these are kind of the hopeful ones, the ones that I'm crossing my fingers will come out. So first I've got, of course, HAKEN, as was mentioned in that announcement. It sounds like they're cooking up some new material for this year, so I'm interested to see what they have. And, it's kind of bittersweet because they lost a couple members, but I think they could end up with something really interesting on their new record, because Fauna was one of my favorites, so I'm interested to see if they continue in that direction. We've also got the Deer Hunter. They are one of my favorite groups. They came out with Antimai back in 2022, and there's been rumblings of this album Sunya that they've been working on. And if you haven't heard of the Deer Hunter, they're just like fantastic modern prog, kind of in that more indie, like alternative prog space, but fantastic. They have the Axe series, which is just these sprawling concept records that dabble in a lot of different genres and are fantastic. I love Antimai because they add a bit of like almost a funk jazz aspect to their sound, which is just right up my alley. And Sunya is taking place basically in the same world as that one. And they've been teasing that it should be coming out this year, probably by spring of 2026 is what I'm hoping. I think Steven Wilson is also working on a new record. There's no real concrete news, but he's talked a little bit about being in the studio working on his next project. So we'll see what comes of that. I don't know if that's going to be later this year or next year, but he's always busy with working on some kind of new project, right? Thank You Scientist, I keep hoping will come out with a new record. They have a new singer. Another piece of news, it seems like their bassist has left the group, but they should still be working on a new record, hopefully to come out at some point in the next year or so. But Dirt Poor Robins have announced a new record, Youth of the Apocalypse, which should be coming out in May this year. One of my favorite groups. Once again, kind of like Deer Hunter, they dabble sometimes in this vaudevillian type style, but also dabble in a lot of different elements of like 80s pop and, more modern prog and stuff like that. So that should be exciting. I'm hopeful that Beardfish will continue. They basically reunited in 2024 for Songs for Beating Hearts, and I've heard rumblings that they've been in the studio and such, working on new music. So hopefully that comes to fruition at some point. The Flower Kings, I wouldn't be surprised to see another Royna Stolt-helmed album coming out at some point this year as well. The Pattern Seeking Animals is always working on new music, so that's another thing I wouldn't be surprised to see come out. I wish there was new information about Fido. I know some people in the comments have asked me about Fido and what his latest endeavors are. He's been very quiet on the prog front, so I don't know if there's really anything coming from that camp. Hopefully at some point. There was rumblings of an album called Automoto Animus several years ago, but just I've heard no updates about if that's even in the works anymore. I'm hopeful that Wobbler will come out with something new at some point in the not too distant future. Lars Fredrik Freusli came out with his solo record, which was really great last year, but I would love to see the whole Wobbler group come together. So those are some of the things. I'm also looking forward to new No Spoon, who have been working on a follow-up to their album Opus. And Advent Horizon, I'm hopeful, will come out with something new this year. It seemed like they were pretty much finished with an album late last year, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a release this year. So those are some of the top of mind things. I'm sure I'm probably forgetting other projects. Let me know in the comments if there's other upcoming albums or bands that you've heard are working on new material, stuff that you anticipate will come out this year. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interesting announcements over the next few months. And so it's an exciting time. And so I'll close this episode talking a little bit about my plans for 2026 for the channel. I know this has been a bit scattered. I feel a little bit rusty today doing this episode. It's been a few weeks, like I mentioned. But my plan for the new year, I'm actually taking a little bit of a step back from my music listening habits. I feel like in 2025, in the last few years really, I've been spending so much time like trying to find new hidden gems, listening to so many albums. I cover like over 100 albums per year on this channel in various forms, and I just feel a little bit overwhelmed by it, and I feel like I'm sacrificing time being spent more on the albums that I do love and the bands that are my favorites. You know, I want to be able to immerse myself in these albums that really matter to me and stop feeling like I have to chase the next best thing constantly. So that may mean that I don't talk about as many albums this year in general, but I'm still planning to do full-on reviews for the big artists, the ones that I follow, that I love, that I've been mentioning are hopefully coming out with albums this year. You know, I'll definitely be doing a long-form review of the new Big Big Train record, and definitely we'll be doing one about Neil Morse band, so those won't go away. I'll still be doing those form reviews, and I'm hoping to keep up the monthly, you know, what I've been listening to each month, you know, my roundups of all of the more obscure releases that I don't have time to give full-on reviews for. I still want to keep that going. I started that later last year, and I think it really worked fantastically well. So there might be less albums that I feature on those monthly shows as I kind of listen less to new music a little bit, but I'm still always going to dabble in new music. I'm always still going to be interested to discover the next best thing. So that won't go away. It just may be a little bit reduced. Instead of talking about, you know, 8 to 12 albums in those monthly episodes, maybe it'll be more like, you know, 3 to 5 albums or something like that, that I really think are the cream of the crop, that I focused more in on and have more thoughts about. So that's kind of my direction. I still want to do the weekly news updates. Of course, you know, if there's not much going on in the prog world and I don't feel like I have enough to talk about, I'll skip weeks here and there. But I like coming on each week and just talking about what I'm excited for coming up in the world of prog. So those won't go away. So that's basically the structure. The other big elephant in the room is videos with Jana, which I'm not completely abandoning. I know I haven't done a video with Jana in a few months, but we're hoping to keep that back up, but it probably won't be as regular as it was in the past. It'll depend upon our schedules and when we feel compelled to record things. I was hoping to do a little bit of a year roundup with Jana, but we just haven't found the right avenue to do it. And the other thing that's happening for me this year is I'm really trying to expand my interest in hobbies outside of just music. I've really been enjoying books in a way that I haven't in a long time. I'm a huge avid reader. I've been been thinking about like doing more book related content on this channel, but I worry it would be too far removed from the prog content that I've become known for. So I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but it's something that's always in the back of my head. I'm also a big fan of like television and movies, and I've always thought it'd be cool to do some kind of podcast or YouTube video about that as well. I have a lot of interests that I really would love to talk about and find an avenue for and just spend more time with this year. So, but of course my primary interest is always music, and that's always going to come first. And so that's what you can expect for the channel moving forward. Let me know in the comments if you have ideas or thoughts about this, or if you have, what you think would be a good direction for the channel. I'm always open to ideas, but of course, at the end of the day, it's up to me how I do this. And this is just more of a fun venture, hobby. I don't really make very much, if any, money from this. It's just me talking about what I love in my own fashion, so I have to do it in a way that makes the most sense and it's enjoyable to me. So that's kind of where my head's at for the new year, but I'm excited for some of these big major releases, and hopefully you are too, and I'll be back talking about more music. So thank you guys for joining me, and please keep enjoying the music out there. Bye everybody!